Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Talk on Nevada. I'm your host, Andy Matthews. And joining me this week is Patrick Gibbons, an education policy analyst at the Nevada Policy Research Institute. And we're going to talk about education spending. Patrick, good morning.
Good morning.
I want to talk about, now that kids are back in school here in Clark County, as all over the state, a subject that you've written at length about, and you've got another piece out on npri.org this week on it, and that's this subject of education funding. How much are we really spending on education? And you've pointed out that it's a difficult topic to discuss because there really is a lot of confusion about how all the different spending works. Why is it confusing? Break this down for us.
Well, it's confusing because the media and the districts tend to report a certain per pupil amount that is around $6,000 to $7,000. Sometimes you'll hear from legislators that it's about $5,000 to $6,000, and all this depends on what fund they're talking about. For example, the Clark County School District's general fund will come to about $6,800 to $7,000 per pupil for this year, and that also depends on the student count, which they've just released the current count. So it'll be about $7,000 per pupil. But that ignores several funds, including the federal funds, the district special funds, the internal service funds, the food service funds, the capital project funds, and the debt service funds. And those are hundreds of millions, and in the case of Clark County, a little over $1 billion of additional funding that's not counted.
So the official line on this, then, when they talk about, when the establishment and the media and others talk about how much we're spending on education, they tend to exclude a lot of these categories. When you include all of them and add it all up, what are we really spending per pupil here in Clark County?
Well, the Clark County School District, which is, our viewers know, is the largest school district in Nevada, serving over 300,000 students, about 3 out of every 4 students in the district. They'll be spending about $12,300 per pupil. Now, when you exclude the expenditures from bond revenue, since that will actually be paid back in debt services, they'll be spending about $10,500 per pupil, and that would allow us to give a more accurate or apples-to-apples comparison with private schools.
Some of these expenditures that often get excluded, and that you insist that we need to include things like debt, capital projects, some of these things that can cost a significant amount of money, it's not spending that actually goes into the classroom. So a lot of people who say that education is underfunded, they sort of have a point, don't they, in that we're really not spending enough in the classroom, not spending as much as we should, because some of that spending is actually going to other things that sort of reflect the growth rate of the population here in Southern Nevada.
Well, it's not all true. We may not be spending enough in the classroom, but that only means that the funds we're spending in other areas, perhaps we're spending too much. For example, capital project fund, we're spending $671 million building new schools. We're spending $650 million paying back old debt. That's about $4,400 per pupil this school year that could go into the classroom if we figured out other ways of spending. Now, there's another side, and that some of the funding that's not counted in the general fund actually does go to the classroom. For example, there's about $152 million from the federal fund. Some of that money is used to pay for programs for disadvantaged kids, those are low-income kids, and children with special needs. There's $178 million in the special revenue fund. And some of that money, $109 million of that, goes into the classroom size reduction. So you can't say that that money is not going to the classroom. Some of that money also goes to fund all-day kindergarten.
You talked about the fact that, there is some legitimacy to the argument that a lot of this money is being spent outside the classroom. And you said, and you've argued this before, that we need to find ways to bring those expenditure levels down so that more of it gets into the classroom. How do you do that in a place like Southern Nevada that is growing at such a robust pace?
Right, and Nevada has been growing, with the exception of this past year, very rapidly. So our leaders, our policymakers in Nevada, need to get innovative with the solutions to address the problems that we're facing. With rapid growth, it means you have to construct a lot of very expensive schools. And as everyone knows, government is not very efficient when it comes to using and allocating scarce resources. So ways we can address the problem, reduce the expenditures on capital outlays and on debt service, would be to do things like expand charter schools. Charter schools in Clark County School District receive just $6,500 per pupil, and that funds their entire operations, including repaying debt on their buildings. They do not have access to the capital project fund and the debt service fund, so they have to be very efficient with the resources they use. We could expand the empowerment program and give those schools control over the resources to manage and maintain their buildings. That would incentivize them to be efficient with the funds so they could find the best way and the cheapest way to maintain their buildings and use the savings to fund the classroom. We can also have voucher programs or tuition tax credit scholarships. The Step Up for Students program allows corporations in Florida to get a dollar-for-dollar tax credit for making donations to scholarship programs that help low-income kids go to private schools. Now, these scholarships are $3,950 per pupil. Translate that to Nevada, that would be tremendous savings for the state.
All right, just to kind of give us a little bit of perspective here, when we talk about education and spending, you've looked at the comparison between what we spend per pupil in public schools versus private schools, and the results on the surface kind of seem a little bit counterintuitive. Talk about what you found there.
Well, the U.S. Department of Education did a study on private school tuitions a couple years ago, and they found that in the 2003-2004 school year, the average tuition cost at a private school was actually lower than what states were spending on average for the public schools. Adjusting for inflation to 2009, the average private school was spending $7,700 per pupil. That's a lot lower than what Clark County is spending. And I mentioned that the appropriate comparison would be the $10,500 number because that excludes the debt services. Well, to put that in perspective, only 15% of children attending private schools attended schools that charge tuition above $10,000. So Clark County is essentially spending an elite level of money, and we're not getting an elite level results.
All right, Patrick, great information today. That's all the time we have for now, but school year is young, and I'm sure we'll have you back to discuss some more of this down the road. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for tuning in to this week's edition of Talk on Nevada. I want to remind you to check us out on the web. npri.org is the address for more information on this topic and other private solutions to public challenges facing our silver state. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.